Thank you so much for watching Landumc Goes There. Please subscribe and hit the like button and the bell notification button. Happy Days is an American television sitcom that aired its first run on ABC from January of '74 to July of '84. It was created by Gary Marshall and became one of the most successful series of the '70s. The show presented an idealized vision of life in the 1950s and early 60s that takes place in the Midwest. It starred Ron Howard as Richie Cunningham, Henry Winkler as his friend Fonzie, Tom Bosley and Marion Ross as Richie's parents, Howard and Marion Cunningham. When Gary Marshall was first approached by Paramount executives to create a new sitcom, they envisioned something originally set in the 1920s or the 30s. But Marshall told them that he didn't know anything about that time period. But he did know about the time that he spent as a teen and a young adult in the 1950s. He put together a pilot about a Midwestern family that just purchased their TV set, which was actually the first one in the neighborhood, and how the teenage son planned to use it as a chick magnet. The series didn't sell, and the pilot ended up as a vignette on Love American Style, which was noted to be a dumping ground for failed pilots. The show's creator wanted to call it Cool, but test audiences reported that Cool made them think of cigarettes. So one of the producers suggested, how about calling it Happy Days? Because that's what we're going to show. At the onset, Ron Howard wasn't looking to do another series. He had recently enrolled in USC's School of Cinematic Arts with the goal of becoming a director. But he had a small problem that was nagging at him, that being a low draft number. At that time, Uncle Sam was no longer handing out student deferments to college students. But there was a possibility of him getting an occupational deferment if his employment was directly related to the employment of 30 people or more. Luckily, Paramount was a large enough company with enough employees who would be without work if their star was drafted. So Ron Howard signed on to play Richie Cunningham, basically to avoid the draft. Even though the pilot didn't sell, Howard could breathe a sigh of relief since President Nixon had ended the draft shortly after filming wrapped on the pilot. George Lucas's Oscar-nominated 1973 film, American Graffiti, launched a craze of the 1950s nostalgia, even though that movie was set in 1962. Casting director Fred Roos had worked with Ron Howard on The Andy Griffith Show and recommended him to Lucas for the role of Steve. Lucas ended up digging out the Love and the Happy Days episode of Love American Style to determine whether Howard could play an 18-year-old high school student convincingly. Once American Graffiti became a runaway success, ABC decided that the time was ripe for a 1950s-era sitcom, and Gary Marshall's project was resurrected. When Henry Winkler got the call back after his first audition for the role of Fonzie, he was taken aback when he saw the other contender was former Monkees drummer Mickey Dolenz. After seeing this, he just knew that he wasn't going to get the part. Dolenz was without a doubt the producer's original choice to play Fonzie. But at 6 feet tall, Dolenz towered over the 5'9" Ron Howard, so Winkler was deemed a better fit for this role. Henry Winkler really struggled to read his scripts and learn his lines. He had struggled in school as a child, no matter how hard he applied himself. He wasn't diagnosed with dyslexia until he was 31 years old. When he auditioned for the Happy Days role, he only had 6 lines, which he made up because he couldn't read them. The producers said that's not in the script, but quick thinking on his feet, Winkler replied to him, "I know, I'm giving you the essence of the character, and if I get the part, I'll do it verbatim." Bill Haley recorded a new version of his signature hit for the opening credits. Rock Around the Clock spent 8 weeks at the top of the Billboard chart in 1955. This original single version was only used once on Happy Days for the very first episode. Haley recorded a new version of the song exclusively for the series, and this was the song that was played over the opening credits during the first 2 seasons of the show. Now, Fonzie didn't really love Pinky. In the show's season 4 opener, A Hugely Hyped Affair, a 3-part story arc entitled Fonzie Loves Pinky, the big news was that Fonzie was going to find true love, and the object of his affection was a daredevil cyclist named Pinky Tuscadero. This character was played by Roz Kelly, an actress who caught ABC honcho Fred Silverman's eye, and she had really become a pet project of his. He believed that she could be the female Fonzie, and as a result, the Pinky and Fonzie pairing got almost as much press coverage in the summer of 1977 as Charles and Diana would receive 3 years later. But Roz Kelly, being a brass and abrasive person, just didn't fit in with the rest of the cast, particularly Henry Winkler. From the very start, she was a thorn in their side. She felt that her growing up on welfare and working around these rich kids on the set just didn't mix, and she was quietly written out of the series altogether. But that's not the end of her troubles. On November 29th, 1998, she was arrested for firing a 12-gauge shotgun into the living room of a neighbor's house after a car alarm woke her up. She also shot a neighbor's car and another car that was parked close by. She was arrested and pled no contest to the charge of firing at the house. She ended up receiving 3 years felony probation, and she was also ordered to receive psychiatric counseling and pay restitution. Then in October of 2000, she was sentenced to 120 days in jail after pleading no contest again to charges stemming from an incident where she was arrested for hitting a man with her cane. She was given credit for the 98 days that she had already spent in jail awaiting the sentence, thus avoiding having to spend any more time in jail. Take a look at this very funny show from the 70s. It's a fun one to watch. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics